By way of example, the introits became a part of the Mass only in the 5th century, dating to the era of Pope St. Leo the Great. The Mass was offered for 400 years before the introits were added, but their addition was clearly beneficial and remained in place 1,500 years later. In the 5th century also, the Creed was introduced into the Mass by the Archbishop of Antioch, John the Fuller, as a way of ensuring that the faithful were able to articulate their faith in the face of heresies, which attacked the Church at every turn. He too was correct, and the addition of the Creed spread throughout the whole Church quickly. Of those times, one observer wrote, "It was an age when heresies were as common as books were rare." In the same manner that the sacred sciences developed and through grace brought men to a deeper understanding of some of the mysteries of the faith, man gained insight into some of the spiritual mysteries. And lex orandi, lex credendi, as the depth of understanding of God's revelation increased, there came a natural expression of it in the worship. And the liturgy developed across the centuries as surely did the faith, each reflecting the other in an ever more perfect harmony. As Eucharistic theology developed, it was quickly reflected in worship. Out of such experiences came the inspiration for some of the Church's most beautiful Masses, that of Corpus Christi, written in the 13th century by St. Thomas Aquinas being one example. Then there is the other side. Coming from a direction other than the proper and organic development of the liturgy were those churchmen who had succumbed to various heresies and who brazenly attempted to change the Mass in order to reflect their own flawed beliefs. But it was often difficult to distinguish between the two. Sometimes telling the difference between the saints and the heretics is not as simple as it may seem. In other words, the situation has, for the most part, always been as it is today. On the one hand, there are those who sincerely desire to make the Mass more efficacious and wish to change it to accommodate their view. On the same side of the matter are those who wish to change the Mass, but their desire is to make the Mass reflect their own faulty theology and lack of faith. Conversely, there are those who resist such changes, any changes which they feel certain will destroy the Mass. It is this tension between the various forces that from time to time escalates into liturgical war. Frequently, the motivation is easy to distinguish, as in the case of Martin Luther, who wrote his own version of the liturgy in an effort to destroy the Mass. In the end, true to the ancient axiom, as you worship, so you believe, his Sunday go-to-meeting services reflect clearly his flawed theology, his heresy. Not so easily recognized are minor changes to the liturgy encouraged by churchmen who may have the best of intentions